I've had a lot of sellers reach out. They've been calling me and they're like, Lance, we didn't get the house ready in time. We called you back in May. We had every intention of selling in the summer. What's going on with back to school now? So yes. I mean, we've got, I think next Tuesday is when most of the districts, I think Pasco, Kennewick, Richland fire up on the 1st. And it's back to school. And so traditionally what we see happen is in real estate, we see the end of July and August be a little bit slower because vacations. Everybody's trying to get vacations in before the summer's over. Then they start to worry about getting the kids back in a routine and back to school. So a lot of the buyers that were moving during the summer, they've already had offers in, they've transacted, they're settling into those new homes before. So we get this about 3-week slowdown here in this situation before the market fires back up. So when people are calling right now, I'm letting them know that we're going to be coming into another busy season. Like you haven't missed that opportunity. And I went back and looked at some data, and there's a real estate data solutions company, Adam Data Solutions, and they actually have that September sellers, they net about 9.5% above market value September and the first part of October. So you've really got a big run here where we've got 2 to 3 weeks where we can get properties on the market and you can take advantage of some of these fall numbers. Because what you want to look at is kind of the stats of what happens. And during that vacation month, this is what we're looking at. In our local market alone, in July, we had, at the end of July, we had 1,285 listings. In fact, if you factor in some new construction and some builder homes that aren't on the market, we're just over 1,300 listings. And so that number was increasing. Where you look at the number July over June, the number of listings sold decreased from, in June, it was 378, and it went down to 307. So now all of a sudden, you have 1,300 homes on the market, and you have about 70 less a month selling in July with vacations and back to school and all that going on. That also increased days on the market from average of 39 to 48. So, we're approaching that 2-month mark for the entire market as a whole, and some price ranges are even more. So when you look at that happening, you're like, okay, there was this big rush of listings that got on the market. Some people are calling and saying, hey, I did want to sell. What's going on in that situation? And why would somebody look at selling versus waiting for now the spring if you missed that? Well, one of the things that I always tell people in that situation is you're going to likely end up with fewer competing listings. As we get rid of kind of this glut of summer listings that we had in September and October, you're going to be, so if a buyer had 7 or 8 to go look at, likely they're only going to have 5 or 6 to go look at in that range that they're at. Also, we are going to find that the buyers that are in the market now are likely more serious. They're probably the ones that were going to transact over the summer and they weren't able to for one reason or another. Maybe that was credit, maybe that was savings. And so there was probably a large number of them too that were waiting for interest rates to drop. And when the rates didn't drop, they're like, oh man, well, we still need to buy a house by the end of the year. So they're going to be very, very serious. I'm seeing a ton of people right now relocating for work. So job transfers now that they've decided the kids, we missed that window to relocate for the summer. We definitely want to have it done by the end of the year. So job transfers are starting to come through. And then there's certain people that want to close before the end of the year for tax reasons. I've had a number of calls and we've helped a number of people recently because of recent tax legislation and what's going to be coming down the pike. We've had a number of people leaving, deciding to retire now. and they want those transactions done by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at that, there might be fewer offers in the market, but they are likely going to be higher quality, so less likely to fall through. So we'll have less transactions fall out of escrow, as we call it in the business, going into the fall part of the year. So when we look at all of that combined, we've got to look at what should we be doing to get your house prepared. And staging in the fall is slightly different than staging in the summer is. I mean, I've been harping everybody about curb appeal and green yards and what that means for higher dollar value. That's going to change slightly as we go into the fall. So there's a couple of things that you can do to be ready. Inside, one of the things you're going to want to do is swap for some warmer tones and textures.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times people will now be, some of those warmer browns, some of those fall colors. When you walk in that front door, what does that look like? How is that staged? So you're gonna want to do that. Also, it's not gonna be as light out. So what a lot of times we find in the summer is people have like curtains closed because of, they don't want to let the heat in. And so you walk into a house to show it, and someone might put up with that when it's 103 degrees out, but they're not going to when it's 85 degrees. Like, why is this house all closed up?
Yeah.
So you're going to have to open those curtains back up, make sure the windows are cleaned for the fall and ready to go, so that you're letting as much light in. Also,
but no pumpkin spice.
No, zero pumpkin spice, John. That is it for every coffee shop in town. Not for realtors. You can have a pumpkin or two at the front door for staging, but please don't overdo it. You're going to get me on a whole nother tangent.
Okay, so no ghoulish display.
No. Like you should have like a nice fall wreath on the door, like a couple mums out there for color, maybe some pumpkins at the entry level. You do have to work a little harder to keep everything, nice and raked up, leaves raked up, blown off. Things will still look really, really attractive for the next 2.5 months. But John, you're going to have to leave those Halloween decorations down, stuff them, box.
Okay.
Leave them in the box, put them in storage. We can't have a huge display of skeletons and witches hanging from the front tree out front.
And a guy running around with a chainsaw.
Yeah, that's too much. So we have to skip that for this year's sale. The other thing that we're going to have to look at and being very, very ready for the serious buyers. And I've talked about this a little bit, but in the fall, it's really, really important. Even on a $500,000 house, $600,000 house, it's really, really easy with this type of inventory to let $15,000 to $20,000 mess up your launch onto the market. So your timing window right now is going to be smaller. So some of those summer listings are like, I'll wait it out into the fall. I'll go into the fall. And let's try $15,000 to $20,000 higher, which we might have lucked out and gotten in that summer market. As our fall window gets narrower and narrower, days on the market, we already talked about, were ticking up last month. If your days on the market go to 75 days on the market and we're listing in September, and I'm telling you that we need to take advantage of September and October, if we just go with that average days on the market, that's pushing you into November. Then there's going to be more leaves. Trust me, I've picked up leaves in November. There's going to be more leaves. The weather's not going to be as good. And we're going to be getting into the holidays. So if you want to take advantage of that, you cannot do aspirational spring pricing in the fall. When you go over that, you want to have the reduced price or the market price ready for those serious buyers that we were talking about before the break. So you combine that with really good staging, and you're going to get offers. If you don't do that, you're going to get passed over for some of those serious buyers that are looking for the deal in the market. And what we're also talking about is rates. Okay. So if the rates had come down to 5.5 or even 5.75, 5.85, then there could be a little bit of that aspirational pricing. But right now, the buyers are still very, very rate sensitive. They're looking at 30 years with no buy downs in that range of 6.25 to 6.5. And so that extra $20,000, $25,000 in aspirational pricing, you're just not going to get that in the fall. So I am warning sellers to be very, very aware of that as we're coming into pricing. The other thing that you can do with your staging that sometimes people ignore is, as we come inside more, is dining room table, kitchen counter staging. I find this, you put some nice plate settings out there, you stage the dining room table set. People want to picture themselves in the property. They want to picture their family in there having a holiday dinner. They want to picture having friends over and entertaining when the weather starts to get not so nice outside. So by doing that, you can have that area prepped so that they can visualize themselves in that space. And this is the time of year where we're going to have more focus on those type of areas. So a little bit more focus with the staging can really go well for those serious showings. So there's absolutely more time. I'm telling all of my sellers, let us get the appointment scheduled now to be taking the pictures. The properties still look amazing. The yards are still green. Give us some time. Let's get those pictures done. Let's get the measurements done. Let's get the marketing spun up so that as soon as people are settled into their back to school routines, that second week of September, we are going to be crazy busy from there until Halloween. That is one of our busiest seasons of the year. So we're doing those consults right now. Our listing team is jamming some of that out right now. Photography and marketing is going crazy with those properties. If you want to take advantage of that and still get sold by the holidays, go to kenmoreteam.com, shoot us a message. We're going to be doing lots and lots of these consultations the next 3 weeks.
Yes.
So get the kids back to school, get them settled, and
no skeletons.
And let's make some property decisions. And John, as always, I'll be right back here next week talking about real estate.